Hi, afternoon. We stand between you and lunch, so I rather make this a very engaging session for all. But before that, thank you, Kenneth, for your enlightening topic. You know, in Kenneth's presentation, one part he wrote there, right, that privately held small media enterprises are left out. Today, you are actually very privileged to see and hear from second and third generation owners who are, I wouldn't call you all small, but definitely medium-sized and above companies. You will be able to hear what are the good they are doing in their company, and more importantly, what is practical that they are actually implementing in ESG. So I encourage all of you to ask questions, to be engaged so that you yourself will find out what are the good ESG practices they are implementing within their companies. But before that, why don't we do a quick round and let all three of them have a very short introduction of what they do, what industry are they in, and how they're playing to develop, well, basically, what generation are you in, what business do you do? Just a bit about yourself first. Okay, maybe ladies first lah.
Hold on, let me you all go first. Not working. Okay, Ken. My name is Jamie, and I am the second generation. My father is the founder of the business Scantique. I joined the business slightly over 20 years ago. So when I started, we were in 2 countries, Singapore and Taiwan, with about less than 20 stores. I would say a good 10 to 15 stores. Today, a collection of brands. We have about 200 stores in Singapore, Taiwan, Japan, and we are venturing into Malaysia. And I'm in the furnishing business. So anything B2C is within our portfolio. And we have about 8 to 9 brands, some acquired, some own, our own creation lah. So yeah, that's a bit about me. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Arthur. Thank you for having me, Mark. I run a family business called Goldbell. We are a 40-year-old private company. A bit of the history about Goldbell. My granddad started the business. His name is Jing Zhong. Hence Goldbell. My dad succeeded the business. His name is Yu Rong. My name is Man Jie. And my daughter's name is Si Tang. So 4 generations of Jing Yu Man Tang. So that's the family business. So 40-year-old business, we do things, what we do is we distribute commercial vehicles and industrial equipment. So these are vans and trucks, 10 brands in 3 countries. We also have a leasing business, so we own assets and we rent them out, again, vehicles and equipment. And we have a financing business, so we do microloans. We are a non-bank financial institution. So that's the core business, and we have the future mobility business, venture building business, corporate venture fund business, and accelerator business. All in the vehicle space.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, Nicholas here. I'm a 3rd generation. My grandfather started a business. No nice story, right, Arthur? But he came from China. So the original family business was called Ng Chai Mong. So that wasn't my grandfather's name. That's just a name he came up with. But then subsequently, my dad and my uncles took over. And then in 2007, my sister Nicole and myself, we set up food services and we bought the family business. So the story's a little bit different from usual family businesses, but at that time there were a lot of family members, and all of them wanted to exit the business. So Nico and I actually bought them out without much money. So at least we didn't have much money. We are in the food business, so we're doing mainly food distribution, B2B. So this will be in the HoReCa space of hotels, restaurants, cafes, and all. In 2012 as well, I co-founded Food Bank Singapore, like briefly mentioned, partly because I think it's a right topic here because we set it up because we had excess food that we usually would have dumped away. So I could share a little bit more later.
So when I was actually preparing for this session, I was thinking, okay, why has Professor Annie put 3 specific industries in here, which I'm sure many of you are thinking, how are they sustainable? First, you've got the transport industry, that's probably a heavy emitter of greenhouse gases. Then you have furniture industry that, first in your mind, you're probably deforestation, right? And then you have food, right? And then there's so much talk about food waste. So I think that at the end of the day, all of us are curious. How are you tackling ESG in your specific industry? And on what I'm talking about, how is your industry changing? And how is ESG forcing you to, or you are actually taking a proactive step in turning a disadvantage into a long-term competitive advantage? So maybe I would start with Arthur. Okay?
Thank you, Mark. So we emit a lot of CO2 and other harmful gases. Top of mind now for anyone in the mobility or vehicle industry is clean energy, reducing CO2 emissions. From a very fundamental, so I had two businesses I talked about just now, the traditional business and the future mobility business. Traditional business, an opportunity that actually came up was we took a product from China. This is a brand called Photon. They are the largest truck and bus vehicle manufacturer in China. And we took a van product. This is electric vans, and we are distributing them exclusively and aggressively in Singapore, also participating in electric bus public tenders. So this is from a traditional perspective. This was an opportunity that came up, mainly because the van market was actually dominated by Toyota and Nissan before I brought in electric vehicles for the van range. Still a very small market share, but that's something that came along the way. To be very honest, there's nothing good about electric vehicles. Commercially, it doesn't make sense. The density of energy of batteries is less than 1%, if I'm not wrong. Give it 2% of diesel. And so the energy density extremely low. It's expensive. People haven't found a way how to dispose of batteries. So nothing good is expensive. Having said that, the world is moving towards clean energy. Hydrogen seems to be the future that everyone's focused on. Again, as of today, it doesn't make any commercial sense. It will cost 5, maybe more than 5, maybe 10 times the price of a diesel vehicle. People haven't found a way to transport hydrogen very effectively and cheaply, affordably. And the governments around the world, am I taking too much time? No. Okay. The governments around the world are actually enforcing legislations for vehicle manufacturers to meet the standards of lowering their carbon emissions. So Volkswagen, Daimler, many of the big brands are facing this pressure. And the government actually realized, or governments of the world have actually realized that it's not possible for vehicle manufacturers to build a commercially viable hydrogen or clean cell battery vehicles by 2030. The economy can't sustain it, and if we are going to force people to adopt clean energy vehicles, either the manufacturers have to subsidize, or the consumers, users of vehicles, will have to pay more. So these are trends that we have to notice, and I'm going to come to my final point about leveraging on this trend. Governments around the world today are considering whether they want to relax the regulations of implementing clean energy vehicles. Everyone gave a target date of 2030, 2040, but these days there are alternatives like hydrogen-powered engine vehicles. Hydrogen-powered engine vehicles, so these are not fully hydrogen, but hydrogen-powered internal combustion engine vehicles. Internal combustion engine actually means diesel. It's an engine. So this is what I wanted to share about electrification in general. For my business, we started new technology companies. The first is a company that broke the world record of what we call a pickup delivery problem with time windows. What this measures is efficient routing for vehicles. When public transport operators use the technology, when logistics companies use the technology, it's a software technology. we can reduce the number of vehicles by 20% and sometimes by 50%. So people use lesser vehicles to move more things. So this is an example, and we started 2 other companies related to this space.
So the takeaway from Arthur is quite clear, right? You do not need to sometimes think of old solution to solve new problems, but think of optimizing the current things that you have and creating solutions around optimization so that you can actually reduce greenhouse gases or even your carbon footprint. I think that is very valid. I think many people today think that, oh, I need to capex this or capex that in order to reduce or be involved in ESG, but sometimes rethinking through your process re-engineering can help you in that. So Jamie, over to you, right? Furniture, first thing we think about is deforestation, waste, Tell us how you have actually changed that perception for Scantic and create a competitive advantage using ESG.
Sure. I did have some very environmentalist people come to me and say, you are killing the world. I'm like, why? Why do you need to chop down wood just so that people can sit on it? And it got me thinking. I think that was a very good question, although the tone wasn't so nice. So what are some of the things we did was that we used, now we only use very sustainable materials. That was a pain to find, especially we sourced from Indonesia. But we had to get all our suppliers, all 20 to 30 of them, to say we only want you to use sustainable, which means SVLK. I can't pronounce the whole thing is in Indonesian, but it means for every one piece of wood you chop, you need to plant. Okay, so at least we started from that. A second thing that I thought of, someone asked, why don't you use easier to grow materials like pine? Now, then, it made me think, actually, if we could use good quality furniture, you could do a cradle to cradle. So I did a search on Carousel, and I'm very excited to know that, if you put Scantic on Carousel, many people are reselling their furniture. In fact, I went to one of my best friend's houses, and I saw that they bought something from Carousel. I said, hey, you buy from me, I can give you discount. Then they say, no, I buy online cheaper. I say, okay, okay. And so I think a quality and brand actually lends to the life cycle of the product. Lastly, we actually also found an interesting way to build an opportunity out of it as well. So when we went to the factories, we realized that, while they use bigger planks of wood, here's a wooden plank. Then you take the long planks of wood to build certain big furniture. And I asked, what about the smaller pieces of wood? They said, sometimes we use it to make tofu, if I'm not wrong, for our Indonesian friends here, because the wood scraps. I said, what about the slightly bigger ones? They said, we don't have a use for it. I said, why don't we redesign something? Can we do accessories? Can we do smaller stools, for example? And the opportunity comes here. Since you're going to throw it away, don't throw. We try to design something from this piece of wood, and then you can give me the better prices because you're not throwing away the rest. We're reusing the rest. You're selling me more things, and we can price down the items. So from that, we actually managed to push our e-commerce store by selling accessories first. And we realized it was very popular. And also for them, they feel like they're making more money and using less logs. Right? And for us, our design team will be tasked to use the brains to think. Now, when you design a furniture, just don't think big piece. Also think medium pieces, what can you do? Small pieces, what can you do? The dust, we let that one go. We can't fight every battle. So these are some of the things that we're doing on the product side of things. And on the smaller, low hanging fruits, we also try to use, for example, if you ask me for my business card, I will try to give you my QR code card. It's just so that, every paper that you could save. Why? Because sometimes in Singapore, there's a turnover. Unlike me, I'm there forever, and I will probably be stuck there. But most of my staff won't, right? So sometimes they haven't confirmed they leave. You don't have to keep printing business cards. So last but not least, going into the future, I'll just do something more product-centered. 2 things we're hoping to do. Many years ago, I came in and we were looking at recycled furniture. But when I brought in recycled furniture, it didn't work, not because it's not beautiful, but there's this thing called superstition. Okay, that I never thought of. So customers say, recycled wood means someone died on it. Is maybe the house, someone died already, got ghosts, and then they bring it down. And so, we could not bypass that superstition. It's a culture. But over the years, I read recently, I mean not too recent, but Bidadari used to be a cemetery, right? But it was oversubscribed. And Straits Times say that Singaporeans are unfazed, which means it might be something we can look into again because people might be less superstitious. So that's one thing on the product side that we'll keep reinventing ourselves to find new ways. Second thing we're trying to do is artificial intelligence. We are SM, definitely not E. And so with our parents around, there's also cost involved. But AI has become a very good way. So how? For example, if I could now actually put my delivery fleet, I could put AI into it and say, I want to optimize my delivery fleet, not just based on location, but based on fuel emissions. Okay? So then they can reline up the customers and the addresses. Now as my customer service thinking, okay, this place is closer to this, to that, they must come back here, come back there because of convenience. We can actually get AI to do based on first fuel efficiency and then customer satisfaction side by side. And so I think with AI we can do a lot more. But again, I'm not manufacturing, I'm only retail. So I always tell my team, let's all do the little we can. And let's try to make every bit count because the world is getting hotter, very, very hot. So yeah, that's a little bit about us. Thanks.
Fantastic. So again, practical implementation. This panel is basically focused on that, and you hear this on two things, right? One is re-engineering design to extend the life cycle. The second is creating value from waste. So this is very, very practical, which we hope that you can implement within your businesses as well. One thing Jamie failed to bring out is that last week, if you were on the news, you probably see that she was on TV because she is one of the first few people that has tapped on ESG, Enterprise Singapore's new grant for the AI. And that's why she's talking about it as well. So now, Nicholas, over to you. Food. And food has always left a considerable environmental footprint, right? From production to packaging to food waste. And I think that's a prelude to your food bank, I believe. But then again, tell us what measures have X Inc. implemented to mitigate ESG?
I think like all of us, we've done quite a few things, but I think a lot of people have come to me and asked, since we've done food bank or multiple years already, that why did you do food bank? Because it's loss making, right? It's not profit. So when I started it in 2012, my late dad was asking, why are you doing this? It's an absolute waste of money. So if that sounds very familiar for the next gen, or even current gen, if I dare say, if you're asking your kids why they are doing certain things regards to ESG, there might be a reason, or there should be a reason, and please give your kids the benefit of the doubt. They are not just wasting your money away. So, but when we started Food Bank, we called it as CSR, if anybody remember that. And I think if there's a business case out of it, when we did it, a few years after that, we actually was fighting or bidding for a distributorship for a big American brand. And we ended up with us and another company, and we got it purely because we had Food Bank, or we had a CSR or ESG or whatever you want to call it.
Maybe you can tell everyone what does Food Bank do? What's the whole concept and idea behind it?
Okay, in short, Food Bank, we take excess food, whether is it cooked, packaged, chilled, or frozen, and we take it and redistribute it back into Singapore beneficiaries. So now Food Bank currently work with about 378 beneficiaries around Singapore. So include family service centers, old folks homes, children's homes, and everything. And we redistribute the food. So it's not for profit. So in numbers wise, in 2012, we redistributed about 2 tons. At the peak during COVID, I think in 2020, we redistributed over 1,000 tons of food. So, but yeah, so as a business case, after we did that, then I think my dad kept quiet a little bit. So, but I think you need to show that there is value. And I think in 2012 at that time, if you remember now, every packaging is pretty much green, right? unless you buy from hawker centers. If not, everybody now says you're using biodegradable and all that. In 2012, everybody using plastic and plastic bags and all that. We felt we were slightly ahead of the curve, but now you are really seeing all the companies, and say we work with big hotels, all the international chains, say the Accor Group, for example, they are asking us, what is your sustainability plan? What is your ESG? And I think SATS as well, a few months ago, we had a meeting with them, or they had a meeting with us, our key suppliers. They pretty much told every supplier, you have to be on board and do ESG and count your carbon footprint and reduce their scope 3. If not, you will not be a supplier from next year onwards. So we are quite happy because we have already done it. Other people are not because they haven't done anything. But I think it's a good step, and we need all these big boys as well to help push the thing forward.
So I guess in summary is this: ESG is good for business. Because why? Especially if you are internationalizing, your international customers would definitely demand it sooner or later. And it's better that you prepare yourself now and be prepared. And it can be a competitive advantage, like what Jamie has just mentioned, right? He won the distribution ship because they have an ESG strategy wrapped around the entire organization. So, as we listen to this three esteemed panelists here sharing their insights, question time. Do we have anyone in the audience who wants to ask them a practical question in regards to what they are doing currently? Singaporeans are usually a vocal bunch. I've learned that in Parliament. No? Not at all? Oh, yes, come.
Hi, morning panelists. My name is Louis. I'm in the agri-food space. Actually, my question is for Arthur in the mobility space. So you see the government has kind of already declared the electrification plans in line with the EU and rest of them. But there are major infrastructure challenges which you mentioned, as well as adoption of the general infrastructure. Do you feel that this is going to be there'll be a awakening, and we realize that, oh no, we've gone down the wrong track? What do you foresee us going towards 2030?
Whenever a country name comes up at a panel, I try to avoid. If not, it will be in the news. No, but I'll give you a very, I would say, honest and also responsible answer. Clean energy is here to come, right? COP28 has a target of 1.5. COP28 of 1.5 means 1.5 and 5 minutes left. So the temperature of the world cannot deviate by 1.5 degrees Celsius. That's the target. And everyone has to do our part. I think over $1 trillion is going to be spent every year moving towards cleaner energy and decarbonization. $1 trillion. What I, however, do feel is that there's a very big difference, and this is quite a smart comment I heard recently, that when people understand or do not understand certain things, there's uncertainty to something, people tend to put a very high discount factor because they think it's risky, right? Things that are uncertain, they think it's risky, so people don't invest in uncertain things. The future is very uncertain. Clean energy is going to be uncertain. Infrastructure is going to be uncertain. Are we going for hydrogen? Are we going for electric battery? Are we going for something different? It's uncertain. And the world can only move towards something cleaner if people are willing to take these uncertain bets. And people do not put a high risk of a discount rate to justify this uncertainty. As commercial investors who are running a business and who have to protect investors' wealth, we cannot play that uncertain game. The people that can play the uncertain game are the governments. So innovative capital should not come, and governments are generally very safe. Innovative capital shouldn't come for things which are certain and are risk adverse. Innovative capital for a greener future should come for something which is high uncertainty but brings us forward. This is what I really wanted to share. I hope it addresses your concern. I hope that the government can come up with more innovation capital to address the uncertainty, whether it's changing infrastructure, incentives for newer energy vehicles, and I do not know if battery is going to stay or hydrogen fuel cell or maybe something else. By the way, I took a big risk by acquiring Blue SG. That's all an electric fleet. I still could have been much more profitable if I didn't use electric vehicles. Much, much more profitable, but till today, every single vehicle in the fleet is electric.
You know, I feel so... it's like we just got started and then we saw the 5-minute sign already. Can we have a few more questions? I think we can take 2 more questions from the floor. Yes, please, sir. If you could let us know your name, which industry, and...
Hi, morning. My name is Raj. I represent a social enterprise in the coconut industry called Coco-Veda. We have a little booth out there as well. And my question for the panelists today, whoever might wish to answer it, is, you know, like, we are at a stage where probably it's already accepted that we're going to miss the targets for 2030 as far as the SDGs and all is concerned. At the same time, there is a big push and people are trying to accelerate the agenda. So realistically and, you know, honestly, where do you think we will be by 2030? Are we going to achieve our goals? Are we going to miss them? Especially issues around social sustainability. And like Arthur just mentioned, you know, the government has to step up. I personally totally agree. Where do you think we will be, you know, just from your point of view? If you could just share your thoughts. Thank you.
So maybe we'll let ladies go first this time. And then Nicholas, and then Arthur.
That was a hard question. I was hoping the mic won't work at this point. But to be honest, I am not in the government. Neither am I very well tuned to what the environmentalists are saying. But I've sat in a lot of different sessions to listen and understand. And the little that I understand is that the climate change is accelerating in a faster pace than even the experts has forecasted to be, right? So my only takeaway is that as a second generation, I have the responsibility of stewarding the business. As a parent, I'm also wondering if my 3 children need to be studying underground soon, because the summers are so hot, right, in the next 10 to 20 years. But what I tell myself is, I tell my team, I say, guys, we walk into an aircon room, it's so hot outside. You know, we can only imagine and we can only guess what everyone is trying to achieve, but it's out of our control. You know, so what if they say we can reach, and so what if we cannot reach? So I say, in our own capacity, me as a CEO, you guys as head of departments, let's all do our part. Always innovate. What little can we do? Okay, are we going paperless? Give us ideas, and we do our little part. And let's hope that we can make small ripples to make that little bit of change, you know, paper bags. So we start giving recycle bags. We start, you know, now last time we had plastic water bottles. Now we are sourcing for paper, disposable water cups. Any little thing we can do. So that is my answer to them. And I think in my very, very humble answer to you, I do not know. I wish we would hit our targets, but it doesn't seem so based on news reporting. But what I can do is let's do our little part and let's hope every little bit counts to get closer to that. Yeah.
I'll leave the government questions to the MP. So you can ask him later at the site. But I mean, totally agree with what Jamie said. I can't answer for the government, I can't answer for UN and all that. But like again, we started Food Bank because we wanted to do our small little part to give back to society. So ESG, the biggest thing everybody thinks about is environment. Yes, temperatures are rising. It is really very hot. But you must remember there's also other aspects, social especially. Nobody talks about enough for social. What's going to happen to the older staff that we have, for example? If the business isn't doing very well, so for example, if during COVID, business isn't doing very well, what do we do with the older staff? Not everybody can upskill. I mean, to be honest, not everybody can upskill. And if cost is a concern, what do we have to do? Do we have to outsource? Do we have to offshore? And then what happens to your staff? If you ask our parents and our parents' parents, they would be saying, nobody can be fired. You cannot even reduce salary. And they've been working for so long and they've been taking salary increments for the last 30 years that their salary might be $5,000, $6,000 and they are doing a person's job that is worth $2,000. How do you cope with that? How do you balance between, as like what Jamie said, whether you're head of department, CEO, COO, CFO, how do you balance that out with making it sustainable to make the business sustain? If the business is not sustainable and you're keeping all these people on, or is it better off retiring 20% of staff to make the business survive? So these are questions that we have to ask ourselves. There is no magic bullet. There is no magic answer. Maybe Kenneth can try and answer some magic answers, but I think for us, it's really just doing a small little part, doing what we can, and if every company and everybody out there can do our small little part, and as everybody knows, SMEs are the backbone of every country, not just Singapore. So if every SME does 2%, 3%, it will move a lot better and a lot faster than just waiting for government and the big companies to do it.
Quick, I give a couple of minute answer. Thank you, Nicholas. From an environmental perspective, my figures may be a bit off, but I think it's more or less that I talked about the target of 1.5 degrees Celsius. From what I understand as of now, based on the plans of all the various nations, we are hitting around slightly below 2 degrees Celsius. So what I'm trying to say, there's some way from 2 to 1.5 degrees, but it's not unachievable. So the targets are achievable. And then what actually happens, or what is hindering us or the world from achieving these targets? I heard last week, John Kerry was in Singapore. He actually mentioned that he believes greed of corporations and nations are actually hindering this target. Going green is expensive, right? We have to understand that someone has to absorb the cost. He mentioned greed. To me, I do agree it's greed. However, I do believe that there's something called survivability as well. As SMEs, we have to survive. Going green and increasing our costs in a bad economy doesn't equate to survivability. So I think as we become, or nations become more educated, that we can't enforce or want every SME to go green, understand that survivability is one of the key factors to actually help companies move towards the right direction. That would be a very great step. The other part about social sustainability that Nicholas talked about, I do also think that the world is moving towards the right direction. Two things I wanted to mention. First, in developing countries, if I don't recall wrongly, in the rural cities or suburban, rural outskirts of India, it would take a person or a family 200 years of work to reach a minimum income of $1,500. 200 years of work. And the reason this is happening is because education today that is taught in English, that is taught in Chinese, or the main medium that is being used in the developed parts of the world are not being taught in the local native language that is actually required to disperse this level of education, right? For everyone to be able to learn. So I do see a lot of startups these days in the edutech space that are very focused on mass disbursement of education to actually make people and countries that are less developed become more educated and are able to contribute back to society, increase their income, and also have a self-fulfillment about themselves towards life. In the developed countries, I do see Singapore, for example, encouraging AI in their education. And the whole focus of the Singapore government for education is, from what I believe and I see, the motto would be learning to learn. Learning to learn, learning to discern, learning to distill. So from both developing nations and developed nations, education is improving. I do believe that social inclusion and social sustainability will continue to improve, and basically I'm more positive and less pessimistic.
So I think we have a good 45 minutes with this three extremely esteemed and enlightened second, third generation leaders. We have to wrap this up. I will encourage all of you, whether you are a consumer, whether you are a business owner, whether you're an entrepreneur, is that the old definition of being successful is not financial success anymore, especially if you are looking at which company you're going to be investing in, or if you are starting a business, or you are already in a business, because that determinant no longer works, as we can see, right? A good business now is a purposeful business, and I encourage all of you to look at it on three levels. One is societal. How do you preserve social compact between your business and the people that you actually employ? The second is community. How are you involved, just not as your own stakeholders, but the community around you? And the third is, of course, the environment as well. And you have heard very practical steps of how these three young people have actually started implementing good practices, wrapping around ESG in their business for the purpose of the business, as well as ensuring that this becomes a competitive advantage for them for the long term. So with that, thank you very much. I'd like to wrap this up. Thank all my three panelists. Thank you. I'll hand it back.